If I was a learning professional, and I mean, already last year and probably even before that, AI started to really make a big splash. But I think this year it really dominated a lot of the conversations. I have to imagine that people were having, and of course, a lot of the businesses on the expo floor, they're just really focused on AI. Mm-hmm. So if I would feel like if I didn't show up, it's like things are happening so fast. Like stuff is changing very quickly with the introduction of AI in some different ways. What should I, like, how concerned should I be? Am I still going to have a job in 3 months? Is everything just going to be replaced with AI avatars? What's the story? What's the AI story here, Matt? Give us your hot take.
Sure. My hot take, well, step back is there was, probably a flood of I think 70% of the talks seem to be AI related, if not all of them touched on it at some point. So it's definitely here, right? But there was also a lot of people, the speakers do a great job of polling, right? They should be good at facilitating. So they're polling the room to kind of take a temperature on where people were and where people are as far as from AI, as far as I'm going to keep my head in the sand for as long as possible, and I want to stay away from it. I want to use it. I use it every day. It does everything for me, right? You still saw a broad brush of everyone was represented, right? So I think first and foremost, you kind of go, okay, whoa, we're all in this, and we're all thinking about it. Well, there is more, and a lot of speakers spoke to that. It is moving more and more to the right. More and more people are using this in finding ways to get creative about it. And so I think if anything, I think the thing with the AI is no matter where you're at, it's just keep leaning into that. And then the message, the kind of quote that was leveraged was, is AI going to replace you? AI is not going to replace you. However, the person using AI is the person that's going to replace you. So that was kind of the kick for most of us to kind of think about what did our relationship need to be with AI.
What does that mean exactly? So AI is not going to replace you, but AI is going to replace the person using you?
What? So those using AI are the people that are going to replace the people that aren't using AI. So
I see.
This is a technology set that we all need to be conversant, leveraging, and comfortable using.
Yeah.
Because of what it can bring us. All technology has always helped basically make us more efficient and improved results.
Right. If you're not using AI, that's how you're gonna fall out. But then the question is, how should you use AI? I noticed for myself that I just got finished up working on a delegation class, and I used AI a lot, but really in a supporting role. I have to say, for me, it almost didn't make things faster for me. It just made everything a lot better. It's now it's oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, so I'm going to do it. And it ends up taking me a lot of time, but I feel like I have a much better product at the end. Is that the kind of how are you hearing about people using AI maybe to design and develop programs or to deliver programs? Mickey, what are some of the things that you are hearing this way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that I think that there's a grouping of people that look at AI and they say, this is going to replace everything. There's a grouping of people that look at things and say, this is going to reduce time or reduce effort. And then I think there's another group, and this is kind of what you just said, which is kind of the enrichment or the depth or the quality of kind of how we do what we do, right? And so that's, I think, the categories of how a lot of people are looking at AI. I mean, there's, and that too goes on that same kind of risk and use spectrum. I think that Matt was talking about is all the way from, I talked to people that they said, these websites, OpenAI and stuff like that are blacklisted by my organization. So I can't even use it at work, even if I wanted to, all the way to people that are 110% all in. Right. And so I think like any new technology, we're in an infancy stage of exploration and curiosity and can it do this? Can it do that? And think about it. I mean, we were in these same stages 20 to 30 years ago with like, web-based, internet stuff, right? Of like, ooh, look at all this fancy cloud-based software. Like, whoa, this is amazing. I don't have to have something downloaded on my computer, right? Like, this is amazing stuff. And this is the cycle, but this is a huge cycle. Instead of taking one step on the staircase, we're taking like 5 steps at once. And so some people feel naturally averse to that, kind of that risk aversion. But I do hear a lot more, and I think naturally because of being in the learning and development field, I hear a lot more of kind of what you're saying, Darren, which is, this is cool. And wow, did I go on a path of exploration that I wasn't expecting? But now all of a sudden I have this massive amount of information available to me, way faster than even as fast as a Google search is or something, that I now have a lot more for me to pick and choose from and to think about and kind of mull over in terms of what do I want to do and be able to support people with learning efforts, as opposed to just what I know to search and where do I know to go to look for resources or whatever that is. And so I think there's this like richness and this quality piece too that's part of the conversation with AI, rather than just this used to take me 4 hours, now it takes me 1 hour. Like, there is definitely that, and that's amazing. But there's also this quality and depth piece that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah. Matt, you have conversations with our customers day in, day out. These are maybe business unit leaders or L&D professionals who are looking to want to partner with somebody for training. And I know they're coming to you with questions or concerns or hopes when it comes to AI. What are you gonna tell them now after this conference? Like, what's new on the plate for you to be talking about as somebody who's an expert in this field, and been part of this conversation when it comes to AI?
Sure. I think one of the maxims that are shared also that I think is a useful way is thinking about AI as your intern. So having this intern responsibilities. And so what I like about that is, one, it reminds us that this can be a tool to do more, right? Darren, similar to what you shared, right? I maybe didn't save time, but I was able to up level the product that I did by using it, right? I think that's what we use interns to help us, right? Like, kind of get to the next reaches or those levels that we're like, oh, if I had all the time, I would do this also, right? So it does help us kind of reach that point. And I think, but also with the intern, you have to like inspect what you expect, right? So there is this level of, so like, for sure, right? There are other aspects that come up with AI that can be scary and pose real risk, right? So we still need to be the center of this and kind of looking back and reflecting. And most organizations who have been talking about it, right, are all setting up, how are we going to do this? What is our governance around these? What are our philosophies around this, values, et cetera? And that's a really important exercise to kind of go through. I think there's still a lot of people, I know people are still taking action without those in place because it's just here. But if anything, I think that AI as an intern helps basically both sides of it, right? For the practitioner and for the business to understand, like, hey, we need these folks, or we need this technology to help us kind of go to those next levels.
Yeah. So treating AI like an intern, and I think another one I hadn't heard before is inspect what you expect. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right. Like you're still, it's not like here, boop, 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 and then goes out there. Right.
I have noticed that. Yeah. It doesn't always produce exactly what you need.
Yeah. And the prompts are made to be different at multiple ways. And I talked to a couple of folks that we would do the same prompt with different solutions. And that was kind of like, okay, I'll use one prompt and I'll use it across these different things, because there are a lot of solutions out there that are kind of keep coming up to the surface. And she commented that she's like, it was just bizarre how different they all were.
Yeah.
But they all got her excited about what the possibilities were.
On this AI track, and we'll move to some of the other topics in a few moments here, but did you hear anything or see anything AI related that really surprised you? Something you hadn't seen or heard before? I watched the Chat GPT 4.0 demo, and I was pretty blown away by how human-like the interaction could be. But yeah, in terms of like the classes or maybe on the expo floor, do you see anything kind of like new and interesting? Let's go to Mickey first, if you saw anything, and Matt, if you have anything else too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you said that about like the human-like nature. I think those were the things that really interested me, and I come from a background of higher education and psychology and stuff, so I'm always looking for that like human connection piece. But I love the idea of people and organizations, and I saw this in several of the different booths and organizations out there of using AI as, whether you want to kind of think of it as a bot, as a coworker. I love this idea of the intern, but having it be, it's another program, it's another window that we have open that we can kind of bounce ideas off of. And I saw a number of different companies essentially having something like that, asking quick questions in the same way that, and especially I think for us of all kind of working remotely and distributed, in the same way that maybe you would kind of like run down to somebody's office and be like, hey, I have a quick question for you. What do you think about, right? But using AI in that sort of sense, and kind of there's a number of different organizations that have different, the outward appearance of it looks a little bit different from company to company, but that's essentially kind of the innards of it, is using AI as a backboard. If you think about it like a basketball hoop, right? Kind of using it as a backboard for you to bounce ideas off of. And that even changed my methodology of kind of thinking about things. Of I usually, or up until the conference, would go to some of these AI services that I'm using with a very specific project or a task or something, and now I find I'm just kind of keeping a window open, and as I'm curious about something, I just put a question in there to kind of again use that kind of backboard idea. And so I saw that in a number of different companies, and not necessarily surprising or unique, but a different way of thinking, a different way of operating, in the same way that maybe, I might keep a search bar window open. Now I'm going to keep an AI chat window open to kind of use that as a way to kind of bounce ideas off. Yeah.
I like that, to treat it like a backboard and just bounce ideas off it. This is how you sort of develop your friendship with AI, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep a little window open and backboard. So what's your favorite thing about me, AI? Just for those days I need a little pick me up.
I'm going to train my AI to be Darren. Yeah. The voice of Darren.
The voice of Darren. I think you should go for the voice of Matthew McConaughey. Of course, they did get in trouble with Scarlett Johansson's voice.
Right. Indeed. Yeah.
So I think Matthew McConaughey's voice would be a dead giveaway. Yeah, Matt, how about for you? See anything that new, revelatory, surprising? Where do you think the industry is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tricky to think about what might be new to folks, but I think one lens that, again, I think helped folks go through is one of the talks was done where they talked to the ADA model, which is a popular instructional design model, and they shared ways that here's tools that we use in that model, here's prompts that we've done in that model, that we've just experimented in those areas. And they did a really nice job of kind of breaking that down. And so I think for like larger teams, that could be an effective way to work through the conversation as a group and organization, to think about, okay, in the analyze phase, okay, how do we do that now? If we were thinking that intern model, if we had an intern, what could we ask an intern to go do to even do it, enrich that part of that process for us, all the way down to E, which is evaluation mode, right? One of the prompts that they shared, and we talk about this a lot internally at Learn It, right? We gather a lot of data and we have a lot of these touch points with individuals, right? How can we kind of distill and share that back? And we found really good ways to do that with our programs, where we've used AI to summarize and kind of do that and kind of share back those business outcomes that we're hoping to achieve through our learning programs. But one of the prompts that was shared, a simple prompt that they did share, was like, they were like, hey, from this Miro board point, can you give us some of the top 5 learning objectives that you would recommend in a follow-up? Right. So those are kind of like, maybe again, they feel like they could be, that's a very simplified example. But I think if you're breaking it down and thinking about the different parts of the process and thinking about what are already existing pieces, and then therefore where can our intern maybe help us extend and improve in those?
Matt, I think you make a really good point with that. And I was just meeting with one of our teammates the other day and, kind of readying up our AI classes that we're going to be offering very soon here. I think the end of this month. And I think that's what people are looking for is like frameworks and mental, how do I look at what I do every single day and figure out what are my use cases? Because I think it's very easy for organizations to say, there's thousands of use cases,
Right.
but tell me what that looks like for my job, right? For on a Monday, I have to do this task every single week. Is this a use case? What would I do with this? How would I do with this? And like, that's what I'm really excited about in facilitating some of these workshops pretty soon here is to be able to actually sit with people and be like, okay, think about your actual job, not some theoretical concepts about, amazing organizational shifts and whatnot, but what are the things that you need to do? And how do we actually kind of map that out and experiment and kind of use some of these frameworks or these kind of mental models to think about how we integrate this into our work so that it doesn't feel like this kind of earthquake, kind of ground altering sort of experience for people, but really this is another way to make your work stronger, and that's what I'm really excited about is kind of seeing how we can, there are people like anything, people that are very excited about change, right? The people that, and then there's all the way at the end, the people that you need to kind of like drag across the finish line. I'm super excited to be able to kind of meet all of those people along the way and say, like, what does this look like for your work, right? How do we bring your work experience into this and kind of shine the light on that a little bit to show people like, this isn't a scary thing. In fact, this is pretty amazing, and it's a great tool for you to use, just like all the rest of the tools that we've, incorporated. And, 15 years ago, nobody was saying Microsoft Teams, or, people weren't really using Zoom and all this. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do my job without that,
Last question, last AI question. I promise we're going to move on. Here you go. So obviously, one of the main things that we want to do is help people in organizations start using AI in a way that's going to be productive for them, either make them more efficient or more effective in their jobs. And of course, there's a giant range of industries and roles that people might have where they could use that AI support. But on the flip side of that, it also feels like, hey, I can just, once I become a master of using generative AI, I can just use it as a backboard. I can use it to start I can basically use it to learn anything I want to learn. Like, how does it change how L&D needs to adopt to a new world where so much work is being done by AI? It's like, now I'm not even teaching you how to use AI. It's more like, is there still a role for me in helping you learn? Because, already people could just go watch YouTube videos, but now they can like start to use ChatGPT to get answers and build their skills and learn and develop. What does that future look like, do you think? But Matt, let's put Matt on the hot seat first.
Yeah, I was going to say, which one of us first?
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, who knows, right? But I think essentially what it will ultimately still come down to is some of the stuff, and I'll go to this, thinking about one of the other talks I went to was around generational differences, right? And the entrance of Generation Z. I think, and when they talked about, what they want out of an organization and a career, two that are still were there were professional development and workplace mobility, right? That's always been there. Two that have come up more are community, right? Sense of community and purpose, and with the DEI lens as well. Those are newer components. And I think those components, I don't think they're unique just to Generation Z. Like those are themes we see in our world, right? That have become more and more relevant. And I think those also, but I think those elements too are kind of what's going to be part of what's different, right? So again, those very community focused, purpose, things like that comes from individuals coming together, right? Those connections are not going anywhere. And if anything, I think that's what's most exciting about being in a learning development part. If you have that human-centered, focus, that's what's exciting and electrifying about what we do and what role we're going to play in this. Because of course, there's going to be these tensions too. There will be people that want the robots and the AI to take over, right? Everything, but but in the end, right, we know that it's not going to be just that. We're not going to deploy all of that, right? So I think if anything, so that's kind of I think some of those intangibles that we bring will still remain, and finding out those gaps. And I guess I'll go to the generational thing too, because the capabilities that they see that are different as far as readiness and what we expect for are around communication, leadership. Those are the key pieces, and professionalism, right? And I think generative AI will be able to help in those areas. But in the end, right, I think you still ultimately need to kind of connect and kind of unpack. And really what it is that the differences will be discovered through working together, getting together, etc.
Can't replace connection, Mickey. Is that your story too?
Yeah, absolutely. That, I think about anytime, for most of us, and maybe there's a bit of a bias here of kind of folks that are in the L&D world, but think about anytime you learn something new, besides being excited about that and kind of putting it in play, one of our biggest first urges is to share it with somebody, right? Whether it's, spouse, partner, children, coworkers, whatever, check out this thing, right? And that happens in all aspects of our lives. From I tried out a new recipe and made a dinner and it was really good, so now I want to make that for some friends and have people over. I want to share this, right? To in the workplace, I learned this new thing. Oh my gosh, you know what? I think my 3 coworkers that do a similar job to me would also like to know this. And so I want to share that out. And so that again, just to echo what Matt said, is I think there is this desire for purpose and meaning in the work world is a huge theme over, the last 5 years, essentially kind of like as we've moved through pandemic, kind of post-pandemic, new normal, whatever phrase you want to use, the desire for purpose and meaning. But I think also for real, genuine relationships and community, as Matt said. And when we think about learning and workplace learning and development, there's so much conversation. This was one of the other big takeaways for me from the conference around employee retention and engagement, again, tied directly back to the meaning and purpose thing. Community sits right in the middle of that. And on the facilitator side of things, this is what I do all day, every day, is I'm in a number of different kind of microcosm communities for when we have a workshop together. And a lot of times it's folks I've been with before, and we're stepping back into that community again, where we're exploring new things and taking risks and trying new stuff. And you add AI into that, and that richness and that depth and that backboard, all of that just takes those relationships from, good to great, better to best, whatever it might be, because it comes back to this, what I think is a human urge to share something interesting, to just share, right? To kind of be in community together, which I think it's very inspirational. It's very exciting. For somebody like me, who's an extrovert, it's thrilling, really, but I think also this has a huge impact on especially remote or hybridized workforces, dispersed workforces, of that, creating that feeling of community across distance too.
So if I hear you both right, it sounds like from your point of view, we could be heading almost into a renaissance of learning, like a flourishing of this opportunity to really learn, collaborate, and connect. It's not just going to be something, there's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Mickey, so this was the first time that you actually got up on a stage at ATD and presented. Let's pivot over to what that experience was like. Can you tell folks a little bit on what you presented on, and then just what that experience was like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the good fortune of facilitating a workshop to a few hundred people on influencing without authority, and kind of how do we understand our relationships with other people, and kind of the benefit of our ask or request or whatever it is. Kind of how do we see the intersection of those two things, and how do we essentially kind of amplify that experience to make better asks. And I would tell you I love getting up on the big stage. Obviously, it's my job to get up on the little stage every single day with groups of people. But getting up on the big stage in front of a couple hundred people was there. It was awesome. Matt was in the audience, and a couple other folks from the Learn It team. And it was amazing to look out. There was not a single person that seemed disengaged in the whole group. People were actively taking notes, raising hands, asking questions. The topic is one that, and Darren, you know this because, we created this class together, and we've facilitated it, and we've done all sorts of work together on this class. people oftentimes think about influence and they think, oh, am I like manipulating somebody? Am I doing something that's a bit coercive and weird? So I think there's sometimes some hesitance for people to want to lean into this building the skill of influence. But the folks that were there were really excited. And I had quite a number of folks come up to me directly after the session, lots and lots of LinkedIn connections. I have lots of ongoing conversations, probably a couple dozen back and forth LinkedIn Messenger conversations that I'm engaged with people that were at the session. And to me, that's the big umbrella of what an ATD session is about. It's not just the 1 hour that I was up on the stage doing my thing, but these relationships that have spurred off from this, and people really going out and trying this stuff out. I've gotten a number of messages of, Mickey, okay, I tried this and I did it another time, and I got the workbook back out and kind of, map things out and all this stuff. And that was really incredible. I got some fantastic public shout outs from folks on their own LinkedIn pages of, here's the top 5 sessions that I went to. And there were a number of people that said, gosh, like what an eye-opening session in terms of how it was facilitated in the content, just really refreshing amongst some of the content that was available at the conference. So it was a fantastic experience. I have my eyes at this point on ATD 25. Hopefully we can find ourselves there out in Washington, D.C. next year. But it was fantastic to just be up there and obviously have my teammates in the room too. But just really the power of technology and relationships, again, of continuing these. It's been a few weeks now since we were all together in New Orleans, and continuing some of these conversations with people who went to that session that are now turned on to not only this topic, but also turned on to learn it and what we can offer to them as individuals and organizations, which was really cool.
You talk about this in your book, and I think it's really important. When it comes down to it, us are the thought leaders. It is your partner. You can't rely on it to be the thought leader.
Yes. So this is about redefining your relationship with AI. You are the thought leader. AI is your thought partner. With your leadership, you tell AI what you want it to do. And as your thought partner, it will do the heavy lifting and bring you back a result. But the biggest mistake, and I think this is one of the greatest risks that I see right now when it comes to AI, is leaders abdicating their role as the thought leader. I see this every time somebody copies and pastes an answer from ChatGPT without asking, do I agree? You see people asking it to write an email or a blog post or a customer communication and just copy and paste it without asking, is this our voice? Do I agree with what it's saying? How do I know that this is true? So think of it this way. If you're in a car, you're in the driver's seat, AI's in the passenger seat. Ask it to do the heavy lifting, but at the end of the day, you need to have human judgment here and apply that to the situation.
Absolutely. You can't just rely on the results. I have a friend who put out a newsletter and just cut and paste some stats with nothing backing it up. And people call him out on it. Like, where did it come from? And at the end of the day, he just made the mistake because he just trusted AI instead of, fact checking it.
100%.
I think it gets you down the field, but it can't get you into the end zone is essentially what you're saying.
Yes.
Let's say one of the things I loved about your book is you got so many great, case studies in there. Give us an example of a strategic problem where you used AI, to help a customer or friend.
There are tons of stories in the book. I'm going to give you one that's not in the book. That way,
even better.
When you read the book, you get something new. I sat down with a group of CEOs and I just asked, what are the biggest problems you are facing that if we could solve them, would unlock a new level of growth for your business? Now, I want you to even think about the question I just asked them. I'm not asking for what's an easy way you could use AI. Don't care. I actually don't even care about AI. I care about your business growing. AI is a tool that can accelerate your growth or distract you from it. The difference that makes the difference is you and whether you are strategy first, technology second. So one guy looks at me and he says, okay, I got a good one. I run a manufacturing company. I leased a whole bunch of equipment from this company in Japan, but things have shifted in the market and the debt structure is now killing us. We're going to go bankrupt if it does not get restructured. I look at him and go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What have you done? He goes, Man, we tried everything. And he lists 5 different initiatives that they had deployed to get the board to restructure the debt. And he goes, the problem is because this is a publicly traded company in Japan, the board is refusing to restructure the debt because they think it'll make them lose face in Japanese society.
That's crazy.
I-
AI said that.
No, he said that to me.
Oh yeah. He said that too.
to me. And I'm going, you got to be, oh my gosh, okay. And he looks at me and he goes, can AI help? That was the right question. Any use case, I don't approach with an expectation of a result. I approach with curiosity. Can it help? I don't know. Let's find out. And then can I use really good communication ingredients like context, role, interview, task to generate a high quality prompt to get a high quality answer? So I literally pulled up, in this case, ChatGPT, followed that same recipe: context, role, interview, task. Context: I run a manufacturing company. We leased all this equipment from a company in Japan. Things have shifted in the market. The debt is now killing us. We're going to go bankrupt if it doesn't get restructured. Here's the things we've tried. And I listed all 5 initiatives in detail. None of it has worked because this is a publicly traded company in Japan. It's gone all the way to the board and they are refusing to restructure the debt because they think they'll lose face in Japanese society. That was the context. Your role is to act as an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt. Interview me by asking 1 question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain more context, so you can accomplish the task of generating 5 non-obvious strategies I could deploy to get the board to restructure the debt. And I hit enter. AI immediately asked, do you have any relationships with influential executives in Japan that this board would respect? I look at the CEO and he goes, whoa, I would have never asked that question. Oh my gosh, I do. And I'm thinking to myself, of course you wouldn't have. You don't have 2,000 years of Japanese culture in your head, but AI does. And then it asked 2 more questions about how he had navigated Japanese society in the past. It came back and goes, okay, here's your 5 non-obvious strategies. Number 1, it labeled the Saving Face Consortium. It said, you have enough relationships with the right people in Japan. Approach them to acquire the debt. Give them really favorable terms. Your debt will get restructured. The board will save face. Damon, I look at him. His whole body language had completely changed. And I can tell he is literally holding back tears. He looks at me and he says, I haven't slept in 90 days. I have literally been making peace with the fact that we are going out of business. And in less than 10 minutes, I got hope. We texted a few months later and he said, the ball's moving and this is actually going to get done.
Incredible. So what I hear you saying, it really is too, what leaders, managers, we all need to start looking at things a little differently. Instead of thinking like, okay, how do I go about this problem, right? How do I go about it? How do I solve it? Who do I bring in as individuals? Shift your mindset. I actually set this out to my team today, Jeff, by the way. Instead of asking that question, start asking, what can AI do to help me solve this problem?
Yes. I literally tell people when we do trainings for their teams, the one action I want them to take, and I'm going to apply this to you, I want you to grab a sticky note, a Sharpie, and I want you to write, how can AI help me do this? How can AI help me do this? And stick it on your computer, stick it on your desk, stick it on your monitor, stick it someplace that you will see it every day. Because if you just see that sticky note, it will prompt you to ask the question for whatever you're doing in the moment. And if you genuinely approach with curiosity, like, will it work? I don't know. Let me use some good communication ingredients: context, role, interview, task, for example. There are plenty more that are in the book, by the way, page 73 specifically, but that will give you a good starting point, and you will build confidence and competence very quickly.
And it doesn't even have to be, if you want to get in the habit, it doesn't even have to be around work stuff. It
No.
could be problems you run into at home. I find myself just taking a picture or something, sitting to AI at home and say, like, how do I fix this challenge or this problem, and rely on it.
I'll give you one. My wife's birthday was coming up. I have a track record of being terrible giving her gifts. And I wanted to really knock it out of the park. And so I went to AI, context role interview task. Context is my wife's birthday coming up. These are her love languages. She's constantly said that she wants to feel taken care of and seen. Like, I gave it lots of context. Your role is to act as an expert gift giver. Interview me by asking one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. And then your task is to outline the best gifts that I could give her that would make her feel loved, seen, heard, in alignment with her love languages. And it conducted an interview, and it came back and it said, well, have you considered writing her a bunch of notes about what it is that you love and appreciate about her so much, and you could create a scavenger hunt around the house where she has to go and she finds a note for every single one. And I said, oh, this is fantastic. Now conduct the interview of me to pull what you need out of my head to structure the things that I love about her. Now, I could have written all those things down, but there's something about when somebody asks you the question, things flow. And here's the hidden value. It's capturing all the additional words that you give it, and it's able to process them and to give them back. The things that it spat out, I could have handwritten everything, at least the ideas that it came up with. 1, it helped me do it faster. 2, the writing was so much better because the things it pulled out of my head, it was phenomenal.
I guess the question is, when you gave her the present, did you give AI the credit for coming up with the ideas?
No.
Yeah. There you go.
No.
There you go.
Now I don't need to hide it either. But
Yeah.
because here's the thing, and I see this in companies, still to date, the majority of people are using it, but they're hiding that they're using it. And I think this is a huge leadership opportunity to create a culture where it's celebrated to say, I used AI for this, rather than thinking that this is something that is going to diminish your capability. Because I believe this is going to enhance you, not replace you. And in fact, like, there's a person on when I look at my team, everybody has to be AI driven. We have to practice what we teach. If somebody is doing things the old fashioned way, which is going to take longer and be lower quality work, they don't have a right to be on my team. I expect you to engage your resources.
So how can a leader take, let's just say, one step to start getting people to feel comfortable admitting that they're using AI and celebrating it amongst the team?
Well, all leadership starts with self-leadership. Now, this also depends on where you fall on the org chart. If you're the CEO or you're C-suite, it's time to go first and to start using this and to talking to people about how you're using it. Let's assume you're not in the C-suite. I think you have an opportunity to use this and find a really cool use case where you can then go to a senior leader and say, I want to show you something that I came up with. I mean, this is literally how I ended up getting put in charge of AI for the steel company. I was just using it, and I knew the chairman was using it, and we were talking about it back and forth, and I started showing him how I was using this for strategic thinking. He was like, this is incredible. And I was like, that's when I made the pitch. And who better to put in charge of championing this through the company than the person who's already championing it without being appointed to do so? And so I genuinely believe, for people and companies, if you are listening to this right now and you're really getting excited about this, you have an opportunity to create a career advantage. Your job is nothing more than the skills you apply and the processes you follow. In every technological disruption in history, technology changed the skills that were valued and the processes that we followed. So when you are hiding the fact that you're using AI, you're clinging to the way things used to be rather than reimagining how can things become. So start using it, find a way to deliver value with it, and then start teaching other people how you're using it and helping them become more comfortable and successful with it. And I think you'll have an opportunity, especially if you're willing to pitch a vision for the company in terms of what this looks like. You'll write your ticket.
And it comes down to, we talked about this earlier a little bit, fixed mindset versus growth mindset.
Yes.
Right? If you're going to be stuck in your ways and afraid of it, hey, people, this is inevitable. You have to get on the train. I mean, it's not going to stop. I mean, I heard somebody say, which is true, that the change of pace is the slowest it's ever going to be in our lifetime. It's only going to get faster and faster. So you got to get on board. I think that is so critical. Now, there is some truth to definitely some truth to the risks of AI. People are afraid of, it's going to replace me. It's going to take away my job. What advice do you have for CEOs and team leaders of how to address that, Jeff, with their team?
Sure. So again, I wanted to have data to support what I'm about to tell you. So I literally went back and studied the major technological disruptions of the past: printing press, steam engine, assembly line, electricity, internet. This is when I realized your job is the skills you apply and the processes you follow. In every disruption, tech changed the skills that were valued and the processes that were followed. As a trend, more jobs were created than displaced. Will there be job displacement here? Yes. But what you have to realize is it's not the job or it's not the person that gets eliminated. It's the skills and processes that have become outdated. So you, regardless of your level, have a huge opportunity. If your job currently is leveraging skills and processes that AI can augment or automate, what you currently do will change. I'm going to tell you 6 out of the 10 jobs that exist today didn't even exist in 1940. Yep. So to assume that your job will continue the way it is, you're thinking like Blockbuster and not like Netflix. You have an opportunity to acquire the next skills. For people who have a fixed mindset, that is scary. And they're not bad people. They fear that change. People who have a growth mindset see that as an opportunity. I am calling you to ask the question, who can I become in the future? I think a great example of this, Dan Sullivan wrote a book called 10X is Easier Than 2X. He makes this claim that you can double the size of your company. You can keep doing 80% of what you currently do. You only have to change 20%. But if you want to 10X your company, or as an individual, 10X your income, you literally have to stop doing 80% of what you currently do, hold on to the core 20% that brings the most value, and then move all that 80% to a completely higher level of capability. Here's why I think this is good news. In my experience, and you tell me if you agree with this, Damon, I think most of people's time is consumed by 3 things: checking email, sitting in meetings, and doing the things on their to-do list. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Now, the things on their to-do list, are they filled with 20% priorities that drive 80% of the results, or clouded with 80% tasks that only drive 20% of the results?
They're mostly mundane tasks that are just getting in their way. But Jeff, it also comes down to, and I'm curious to see what you think about it, is getting people out of their comfort zone to just falling into the habit of working on that garbage, so to say.
Yes. Well, and again, this is why the mindset is so important. AI can already augment or automate half of what you do. That can scare you or it can excite you. As a guy for the last 10 years who was coaching executive teams and advising companies and boards, that first scared me because most of what I did was asking the questions. And I looked at AI and said, I've already proven AI can ask the questions. So I could be afraid of that, or I could view it as an opportunity. I chose to be abundant and view it as an opportunity. I've already created an AI model that's been trained on my book and has 10 pages of custom instructions to get it to be me on my website at aileadership.com. That now has excited me because now I can free myself from having to be the person that asks all the questions and now move to a higher level of capability. And I'll tell you, I have 10x'd, no doubt. And so I think you really have to start and just recognize that you have an opportunity here. What you have done in the past does not have to be what you do in the future. I would challenge you. How can you use AI to free yourself from at least half of what you've done in the past? And how can you create an opportunity to make your skill set even more valuable for the future?
You gave a great example of a study in your book about BCG where they took 758 consultants and the difference of what AI did for them.
Sure. So Boston Consulting, took 758 of their consultants. These are, mostly Ivy League trained, very highly paid people. They split them into 2 groups. One group, keep doing what you were doing. Second group, start using AI. They literally gave them a ChatGPT account and maybe 10 minutes of training on how to prompt. The results were staggering. The people that used AI had a 40% increase in quality of work. They got it done 25% faster, and they got 12.2% more tasks done just by engaging AI as a co-pilot in what they did.
I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So so I'm a manager out here thinking about this, going, okay, I got to get going on this. What is a way that one of the things that a lot of leaders have to do, managers have to do, are performance reviews. What is a way that you can use AI to drastically cut down the time it takes to do performance reviews, and not only do them quicker, but do them more effectively?
Sure. So let's assume that you have a template for performance reviews inside your company. If you don't, you can ask it. If you don't have a template, ask it to act as an expert in doing performance reviews to generate the template. It'll give you an answer, and then ask if you think that will really work for your organization. You can have it interview you by asking one question at a time to identify what is going to matter most in your company, and then generate the template. Get to a template. If you already have a template, you literally can copy click on the PDF and drag it into any of these AI models and drop it, and it'll be right there. Say, you are an expert in HR and conducting performance reviews. I want you to interview me by asking one question at a time to gain all the information you need to fill out the attached template. Once you have enough information, generate the performance review. And it will literally start conducting an interview of you and spit it out. Now, the moment it gives it to you, do not just copy and paste it. You're the thought leader. AI is your thought partner. Ask yourself the question, do I really agree with this? Is there anything that's missing? You could then say, great, now I want you to act as my direct report that I'm about to give this to. Give me feedback on what you like about this performance review, what you don't like about it, and the top things I could do to make it even better. And it will adopt the persona of the person who's receiving the feedback and give you that perspective. And then you can say, great, based on that, now enhance it. I have seen people do high quality performance reviews in under 10 minutes that blew any previous one out of the water.
I agree, man. And I look, I've even used it before, and I would ask it, I'd say, am I being too harsh here, or am I being too nice? Give me some feedback on it. And it really pushes you to, it's amazing when you use it for that.
I'll give you another use case. Last week I was texting with a guy who's been, the core of our business is called the AI Driven Leadership Collective. I'm creating a executive AI network of AI driven leaders where we get offsite a few times a year to really share and collaborate on how we're using this so that we can give them all the roadmaps and playbooks so that they just implement this way faster. The guy said, I don't know if I can make the January offsite. I have to cut $2 million from our operating budget as mandated by the board. And I literally texted him back and said, have you asked how can AI help me do this? And he goes, oh my gosh, no. What would that even look like? And I literally sent him the prompt. Context role interview task. Context. Here is our financial statements from the past, and here's our financial projections for the future. Here's what you need to know about our business. Here's where we've been focusing. Here's where I currently perceive the greatest opportunities to cut costs. Your role is to act as a strategic CFO who's adept at cutting $2 million from operating expenses without slowing growth. Interview me by asking one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context, and then complete the task of outlining the roadmap for how I can cut $2 million within the next 6 months without slowing down growth. I sent it to him. 5 minutes later, he sent me, holy crap. I literally saved him 45 days of work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I'm just trying to get people to understand. It's like ridiculous the game changer it can be and the time it can save by doing all this. Now, as we kind of wrap up here, Jeff, we talk a lot about.
Can I give you one more? Can I give you one more?
Keep going. Keep
Okay.
going.
Okay. So one of the guys who's in the collective. He's in the real estate space. He has built a very successful company flipping houses. And he had his strategic plan and he had sent it to me. And I said, have you used AI to bulletproof this? And he goes, no, what would that look like? And I said, literally drag and drop your strategic plan into AI. It had met the security provisions, which we could talk about in a second if you want. And I said, tell it to act as an aggressive, growth-minded board member in reviewing your strategic plan, that your goal is that it bulletproofs it, to challenge every assumption. Does the plan have the sufficiency to deliver the results that he wants? Are there things he should be considering that he's not considering? Are there things he's currently saying yes to that he should be saying no to? And to ask as many questions as it needed, one at a time, to gain context, so it could then tell him what he liked about his plan, what he didn't like about his plan, and the top changes he would need to make to his plan. AI conducted an exhaustive interview and came back and said, your plan does have the sufficiency to help you hit your goals this year in alignment with your 10-year goals, but it's going to violate the quality of life that you want to live as a person. Instead of this, my recommendation is that you stop flipping houses altogether and instead focus on multifamily real estate and the service-based businesses that surround them. Here's why. And it literally made an argument for why he should stop doing the entire business that he is currently doing and instead acquire buildings and companies that service the buildings. Here's where this gets crazy. With that insight, in the next 30 days, instead of going and getting another house under contract where he would net $10,000, he got a building under contract that, since he got it at such a steep discount, the moment it closed, he netted $1 million.
Come on.
Dead serious, from one prompt. So when I said at the beginning of this episode, you could use a prompt that could return $1 or $1 million, I actually meant it.
Hey, Jeff, do all your buddies just call you up with all their problems or their business challenges? Like, oh, all right, let me send you a text, or let's just spend 5 minutes. I want you to figure this out for me all the time.
No, but I did talk to a guy yesterday who's starting a property management company, and I literally sent him the text to get AI to act as an analyst that could conduct research to identify the top things people love about a property management company and the top things they hate about a property management company and the top non-obvious strategies he could deploy to build a competitive moat. And then based on that research, to then conduct a prompt where it would act as a board member that would interview him to understand more about how he's visualizing the company with the context of the top things they would like, didn't like, and non-obvious strategies, to then create a competitive strategy statement that would outline the protective moat he's building, so that he shared it with any real estate owner or real estate agent. They would go, we need to talk to you.
Well, that's impressive for a lot of reasons. One is my family owns a property management company, so I got to get my brother on it to figure that out. Um, now we're talking to AI, and all the skills that are required to do it, and we talk a lot about curiosity. What are some of the key critical skills that leaders are going to need outside of using AI to make it effective moving forward in the future?
Change management. So everything we've talked about up until this point is me showing you, how do you raise your standards for your relationship with this technology? Instead of using it as a Google to ask questions to, or an assistant to delegate tasks to elevate its role in your life as a thought partner with you as the thought leader. That's everything we've talked to up to this point. The moment you become proficient in using AI, you are naturally going to want to get your leadership team to start using this. Once you get your leadership team to start using this, you're going to want to start strategically expanding this in your company to the next set of people. But then you're going to need a skill set of, how do we start to identify use cases where we could use this technology to make things more efficient? Over time, you are going to want to drive this through the whole company to the point where every single person is AI driven, just like every person uses the internet. Every person knows how to use Word and Excel. AI is going to be the exact same. It will become that pervasive, but you have to understand how to lead that change, which also is going to require the conversations about how do people's roles transform. I'm telling you that if we fast forward 5 years, I think people's job descriptions are going to look very different. The skills they apply, the processes they follow are going to be very different. And I didn't pick that number out of nowhere. That came directly from Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google. He said, we are going to be living in a fundamentally different world in the next 5 years, not 10, 5. Every part of your business is going to look different in the next 5 years. Damon, he said that almost a year ago. So this is why there's this compelling reason and case to take action now. No longer as a leader can you say, I'll get to it later, or somebody else in the company will figure this out. If you are currently thinking that way, you are abdicating your responsibility as a leader. I don't care if you're even in the middle of the organization, waiting for somebody from on high to come up with something. You are giving away your power. You have an opportunity to get in the driver's seat, start building competence, using this yourself as a thought partner at your level, and start having the conversations up the chain of command and seeing how you can contribute to help create an AI-driven organization. You will not lose your job to AI. You might lose your job to the person that is AI-driven. So I'm asking you to become that person so you can displace yourself and create a bigger opportunity.
One more question. Going back to your book, which I think is phenomenal and everybody should pick up. What are your goals you're looking to accomplish with your book?
I want to create the future of leadership. I genuinely want to create a completely new category of leader that is the AI-driven leader. This is a person that understands their true human strengths. They focus it on the priorities of their role in alignment with the goals of the company, and they are supercharged with AI. AI enhances them. It does not replace them. For the book, I needed a way to give a non-technical leader a simple roadmap to go from 0 to 1, using this technology in a way that would matter. That is working. Now, the business of AI leadership is about saying, okay, great. You get how to prompt and you get how to use the technology. How do you now start to drive this into your organization so you can accelerate growth and build a competitive advantage? And that's where the whole focus is, the collective. Because I think the technology is just moving too fast. If you try to navigate this alone, you're going to lose. And so my vision is that over the next 10 years, we will have 10,000 executives, all with decision-making authority. They have to be able to approve budget within the collective, where we get off site several times a year to have the space to think strategically, to learn from each other. But we're going to centralize all the knowledge of these 10,000 people. And from that, create the roadmaps, the playbooks, the systems, and give it to everyone. So like when I look at the offsite coming up here, we are going to have every person build their own AI board of advisors. So if they have a real board, this will help them collapse the time it takes to prepare for the board meeting. If they don't have a real board, they will create a custom AI board of advisors to augment their strengths and weaknesses as a leader so that they can have a board of advisors designed for them that they can go to for thought partnership. I have one, like Steve Jobs is on my board for vision and product design, but explicitly he's not allowed to give me any feedback on being a better father or leader. Dead serious.
I think that could be a workshop in itself or a consulting on itself on how to build it. I mean, that is huge right there. So we talked about the collective and we also talked about your book. Where else can we connect with you?
Yeah, I would strongly get the book. It's on hardcover, Audible. It's actually me reading it, and the Kindle. I have a newsletter that is truly world-class. My audience is leaders who don't read emails, and I wanted to create something that was so valuable that you would read the email. And so every week we are sharing use cases, real stories like the one I shared on here, and the prompt that was used to generate the results so that you can start applying it, and you can get on the newsletter at aileadership.com.
What about your podcast?
Oh, yeah. I'm launching a podcast, same title as the book, The AI-Driven Leader. If you check it out now, you will just see a trailer episode. But if you follow the show, there will be episodes that I'm going to be launching this year.
And I think what I heard you say is it going to be exciting about that is you do that, and then you could use all those transcripts to help create prompts and everything else afterwards. I mean, there's so much
Absolutely.
ways to repurpose everything. Jeff, you've been beyond awesome. I mean, we talked about how you want AI where you're the thought leader, it's your thought partner, you know, how you got to get out of the fixed mindset because you have to move forward with this, how you could 10x your employees, how you need to focus on not what everybody else is doing on writing better emails or social media copy, but really the things that matter most. And what I like a lot right there at the end is building your own AI board of advisors. Jeff, you're awesome. Thank you. And everybody out there, do me a favor. Go get Jeff's book, and then also go in and look at his online, his thought leadership or thought leader that is he's trained to work with this book. I played around with that last night, and the free foundation course that you have on there. There's so
Thank you.
many great takeaways that people, you know, there's prompts and everything that people can actually apply themselves.
I literally created, most people are charging money to teach you how to prompt. I gave it away for free. So on AI leadership, there's a crash course. It will literally help you understand the prompt ingredients and how to use it. And I wanted the book to be interactive, which is why I made the thought partner something like you can literally have a conversation with AI Jeff about the book to understand how to drive it into the company.
Thanks, Jeff. You said one of the biggest struggles and challenges with AI adoption is because leaders are afraid there's going to be a shift in power. Can you share with me a little bit, what do you mean by that?
So, Damon, in a way, we are a bit afraid of technology as well today, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, one thing is the job slashing part that we look at, which is of course real concern. There's another apprehension that technology will result in democratization of information and maybe too much to our liking. What that means is anyone in the organization will have access to information. So person who is lower down in the organization and person who is higher up in the organization will have access to the same information at pretty much the same time as you have it. What this would mean is that as a leader, you might not be able to control that narrative that you want to run with. And that's don't take it like a negative thing, like as a narrative, because at the end of the day, you do want to understand and bring your perspective on what data is telling or what information is telling. The consequence, however, of that, which people fear, which leaders fear, is that they will not have enough time or the ability to craft a story behind those numbers, because data might tell an entirely different story and in a much more faster way. So that is where I will refer back to, and that is why I say I mentioned earlier around building a data-driven focus. So leaders need to build a data-driven mindset, right? And to do that, acknowledging the fact that you don't know all the answers, and it's okay to not know the answers, right? In organizational settings, we always pride ourselves on being Mr. Know-it-all or being someone coming to you and talking about, and you want to give a decision right away. You want to make sure that, people do not listen from you, that people do not perceive you that you don't know. But that should be seen as an okay, right? I mean, that's part of being a data-driven focus. That's part of being a data-driven mindset that, yes, data is telling me I had an assumption, right? Now linking it again to the continuous learning also. These are all interrelated, right? I mean, they're connected. They're different thoughts, but they're connected thoughts. I had an assumption based on my knowledge of the situation. Data is telling me a different story. It's time for me to update my assumption. That is what data-driven focus is. That is what continuous learning is. That is the mindset which is needed. to succeed in this and thrive in this world.
I think there's a great quote. Is it John Maynard Keynes who says, when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do? Because it's true. You
Exactly.
can't put a fork in the ground, stick with it, and just, even if the facts and the data comes in and shows you're wrong, are you going to own up to it and make that shift? Because if you don't, then you're going to go down the wrong path.
Absolutely. And that's what it's learning is all about, right? And please don't take me wrong when I say just trust data. And I mean, by no means I'm saying that stop using your gut feel, stop using your inner compass, your intuition. That is what makes us humans, right? That is who we are, and we must use that. We must utilize that. That's the strength. That's the power. That's probably the only thing which is not going to get automated in foreseeable future, at least.
That's true.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So yes, use your inner compass, use your gut feel, but do not over rely on it when data is telling you a different story. Be ready to understand that again, now I will link it to that digital mindset. Understand how that data was actually generated or created at first place. Is it telling the right story? Is it telling it is giving the right information as well? Or was it processed in the right way even? For that, you need to, of course, build a digital mindset. That's where that digital mindset comes into play. So it's a very complex interplay. There is no single recipe that you can follow, that you need to have 30% digital mindset, 20% data-driven mindset, 10% emotional intelligence. That's not, unfortunately, how it's going to work. These are all the skills that we are going to need to build and be open to build throughout our lives now.
I got one question that I was thinking about for a little bit before we wrap up here. We talked a lot about the skills that are needed for leaders. Leaders need this, leaders need to do that. Well, what if our listener out there isn't a leader? Do the skills change for them? Are there a different set of skills that they need, or is it the same set of skills? Even if they don't inspire ever to lead a team or anybody, is there a different set of skills for them for the future, or are they the same 5 we discussed earlier?
I do believe, and I truly believe, that everyone is a leader.
I'm with you on that too.
Right? It does not mean that you have to have a separate separate room, a corner office to be called a leader. You are leading what you are doing. You are leading, but through your work, if you are creating an impact, if you have your work has some purpose to it, you are a leader. You are leader of your own domain. You are leader. Today you are. There is. I don't think so. I can find a person today who is totally cut off from the entire world. Right? In one way or the other, you are interacting with people. You are interacting with your family. You are interacting with your co-workers. You are interacting with your vendors or and so on and so forth. You are interacting with people. You are always a leader. You can lead people into thinking into different mindsets and for instance, if you are say an individual contributor kind of a person, right? So let's talk very specifically from an organizational perspective. If a person is an individual contributor, does not want to become a leader, or like in a sense that as a people manager or something, you would still be leading a number of projects. You will still be leading a number of initiatives that will have impact on different parts of the organization. That is going to have an impact on real humans. Whenever that comes into the equation, you need to act as a leader. And to act as a leader, you need to have emotional intelligence. You need to have data-driven focus. You need to build a digital mindset. You always need to be aware of what are the ethical and responsible considerations for AI and technology. And you need to be a continuous learner. You do not need to have an office in the ivory tower to do that. You must do that in whatever capacity you are working today. Whether you are a solopreneur, you are an entrepreneur, or you are a CEO, or you are a manager.
I love it. I heard you talk about saying that 60% of people have business ideas, but only 8% actually implement any of these business ideas, and that's pretty much what you're looking to solve with Autos, right? Can you share a little bit more about Autos?
Yeah, for sure. Outside my work with Bark, over the last 15 years, I built this organization called Prehype. And Prehype was really a halfway house for entrepreneurs, a place where second-time founders would come and hang out. That was kind of what it looked like on the inside. On the outside, we did corporate incubation, and we built all these startups, and we taught our flavor of entrepreneurship. But the inside, we were constantly just trying to figure out how do we feel cheaper, and fast, and all those different things, and how do we get conviction about what idea to pursue and all this stuff. And because we had to teach it, we were pretty methodical in how we would go, through the different kind of motions. And so when we got access to OpenAI in 2020 or so, I got obsessed about how do you atomize all the processes that we have at Prehype and Bark and all the other organizations I was in, and how do you create autonomous agents to kind of do a lot of that work. And so what Autos is an attempt of trying to take 15 years of learning on how to build from scratch and then really codify it into a co-pilot that we refer to as a mate. And so what Autos is a system that allows people who have the ambition of starting something, but they don't know how to get going, to chat with the bot. It will help you identify what customer that you should serve, what problem they have. It would do the reframing we talked about. It will do some of the signal mining. It will do customer interview. It will make you a deck. It will make ads. It will run conversion funnels. It will help you talk to customers, and it'll help you build the product. And all that it will do within like a 6-day, 7-day window. That normally took us maybe 3 months, 6 months. And then we want to do that at scale. And so the crazy dream is to help launch 1 million companies over the next 10 years or so, and really unlock what we feel is that democratization of entrepreneurship that AI will be able to provide. We will then also provide capital to help you finance buying ads and building product. And so we hope to be kind of this weird new AI co-founder, investor system. I need a better way of pitching that.
No,
So that's the essence.
But it's so cool because it's these individuals, these people who have who have problems they want to solve or ideas, but they never really got around to be able to do it, or they don't know where to do it, how to start. And also on the flip side, in the past, when somebody would come in, you'd have to go and gather all your resources and humans to give them this advice. Now you're taking all this learning from all these years and you have it bundled up in GPTs or agents, and you could just turn it around almost basically instantly.
Exactly right. And I think, in many ways, I obviously get a lot of credit for having started companies that become big, but I think, honestly, I'm not that special. I happen to have been in New York at the time and working in an industry at the time where a lot of attention kind of came. And then I was fortunate enough that I knew a bunch of people I could ask, and I had met people that, so when we had to raise capital, we can do it. And I think if you take all those different resources that I got access to because I was in New York City in 2010 forward, I think a lot of those, to your point, can be kind of distilled down to LMs. And so, somebody who listens to this might not be able to get hold of 5 unicorn founders and ask them a specific kind of feedback on their idea, but we can take their knowledge and distill that into an LM, and then the LM will be able to directionally kind of provide that feedback on their behalf. And that means that you don't have to get into YC or Techstars or any of these other things. to get that advice. You get many other benefits with going through those, but like the mentor part, you can, for example, just get through somebody like us.
I think that's amazing because it kind of almost levels the playing field, right? So you don't have to have a huge network or, being one of those that you're talking about. You can kind of go in, and I think you even do it through Instagram, right? Is where people unlock it, and you get access to, years and years of knowledge.
I think so. And what I hope will happen is, what I've seen at Prehype is the longer we got into the cycle, the more the type of people who came in and want to start companies were not like as homogenous as kind of like the first few years. And I do think, and this is my slightly derogatory, but there is a reason why some of the first kind of internet business were tagging people in pictures at colleges, or getting pizza delivered, or dating service, or restaurant booking, because honestly, a bunch of people who had the resources to build companies were kind of sitting down and thinking out, oh, this is a problem that I have, so I'll build it for myself. And so I think as we allow more people to go like, hey, wait a minute, like I'm a tree cutter in Florida, or I'm somebody who have a special needs kid in like Texas, or whatever it is, then suddenly we are able to allow them to say, hey, I know I can solve this specific problem for my community. I'd like to kind of make a business around that. And they are now able to do it, and they were not like 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about when I was researching it. It's kind of like my last question. It must be fascinating to see what people are coming up with who aren't necessarily entrepreneurs, right? The individuals you just mentioned. What are some good examples?
I mean, like, it's mind blowing. I think we've had about 1,000, 1,500 folks coming through in the last few months, and I mean, like, the thing that, I don't know, like, this sounds weird, but the thing that kind of really hit me was this guy who took his wife to a divorce court and went all the way to the Supreme Court using ChatGPT. And so he now has an advisory service that basically creates like a prepping report for people who feel they might be getting divorced soon. And so, I mean, like, luckily I'm happily married. And so that's a problem that I just never kind of thought about. But I can see suddenly you're kind of worried that you'll get into this fight and like you'll lose the rights to your money and your kids and a lot of other things. Then you want to kind of prepare yourself. And so it seems to be a very useful service. It's just, for example, a problem that I have never kind of thought about.
Yeah, and maybe you can keep it away. I have a buddy who was going through a divorce, and he said that he wants to repurpose what he learned from it to help other people, right? So, I mean, he could go to Autos and build it.
What's interesting is I think increasingly we will all gravitate to products and services that feels they're part of like the neighborhood. And so even if this service exists in another state, there might be different state laws that's kind of more specifically, or he might have like a different gender, age, sexuality, religion, whatever it is that makes somebody that is more kind of like aligned with him wanted to choose his service rather than somebody else's service. And so I do believe in this, like flattening also of the type of businesses where you probably will see many of the businesses that we build on our platform are not going to be one people unicorns. They're going to be $1 million businesses, but hopefully there'll be 1 million of them. And so instead of like seeing this accumulation of wealth to few people, we can see a democratization of entrepreneurship that kind of like spreads the wealth out to many more people.
No, I totally agree. I look at it like you're going to have individuals who want to buy products or with somebody from somebody they can relate with, that they, who's been through a similar experience, Everybody's saying that AI is going to be bigger than the internet. How do you think that it's going to transform the business world?
So I do believe that when I listen to certain people make posts on LinkedIn, there's a lot of clickbait, like ChatGPT is dead or something like that, or how to become a millionaire with AI. And you're like, no, you can't just say, hey, AI, make me a millionaire. Okay. Right. So it is something that it is a technology that will transform the world, some good ways and some bad. And the way I look at it is that there is this ability, that the way that it's able to process information and huge amounts of information and be able to give actionable insights is in itself, from a business point of view, is one of the driving factors. Now, one of the things when I talk to organizations, and my superpower is that I'm not a coder, I'm not a data scientist. I talk to them. They're my favorite nerds, but I like to help people understand in practical terms what AI can do and how it can impact them. And when we look at where we're at, so I like to talk maybe 30,000 foot view, that 2 years ago, that when we think about this, ChatGPT hadn't been released. So we were like at ChatGPT 2.0. That was roughly the level of a kindergartner. Okay, was basically where we're at. Now, over the last 2 years, we had the ChatGPT 3.0 in November of 2022, which is kind of like your middle to high schooler level. 4.0, which came out last March, which basically puts you at like a college level or high school, college level understanding. And now these models are getting smarter. Now, if you compare where we were 2 years ago to where we're at, it's a geometric progression. It's not linear, it's geometric.
Crazy.
Now, back then they were putting hundreds of millions, maybe a couple of $1 billion into these models. Over the next 2 years, they're expected to put tens of billions and hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars into the infrastructure, which will allow us to continue a 2-year geometric progression. The biggest mistake people make is they look at ChatGPT from 6 months ago, the free version, that when they didn't know how to prompt, they didn't understand what contextual data is, and they say, that's nothing. It can't do what I need it to do, or it's no big deal. And I'm like, look, you just looked at roughly 1% of what AI can do. When you get into the capabilities, and I'm talking off the shelf AI, like Claude and ChatGPT being the two large language models that I work with the most. That just to give you an example, I can take a 100-page document. Okay, so I have a prospect that asked me, could AI help us with, and it's an ed tech company. Here's 100 pages on our guidelines. Here's a submission for a course that's 100 pages. And here's an Excel spreadsheet that evaluates, can it, how did they, with 50 questions, does this content abide by our standards? And typically they'll have a human read the course outline and compare it against what they've got. And yes, it is able to do that. I had to do a little bit of prompting, but to be able to read this, and then go in and I said, look, I just answered a few of the questions, and it's like, yes, in section 3.22, it did not conform to the outline because the outline said this, but this. So I asked it to give examples of why it gave the rating, and so that is really scary smart, and that's just like what's out on the shelf. What's going to happen is going to be 1,000 times more smart than that. And so when I show people just that capability, they're like, whoa. And I'm like, but that's just what we have access to today. So that puts it in perspective. So when we talk about this idea of how is this going to impact the future of work or organizations, we have to ask this question that right now, I can go in and I work with C-level executives and typically like startups and other organizations. And I'm like, hey, let me show you as an individual how to be 30 to 40% more efficient. That's one of the things I want to do. So you can kind of see how this can impact you, how you can summarize calls after take a transcript, summarize a call, send an email, a detailed email that's personalized in 5 minutes. You can get the full, you can ask it to be a coach and help me understand, was the client upset? Was it happy? What are my top 5 ways to respond to them? Like, you're getting this kind of insight that normally takes hours of reviewing information. Now you can do this in seconds. And that's what I teach. I'm like, now imagine we add this throughout your organization. Imagine we empower your employees, your marketing, your sales, your HR to become much more powerful because they're able to take these tasks and be able to use a technology that can help them get rid of the manual tasks. They can focus on the more strategic ideas.
What do you? It's awesome, and like I told you backstage, I'm like not a technical guy at all, but I'm a huge AI fan, right? And I think that if organizations don't jump on board, they're going to get left in the dust, right? What when you're working with the C-level of these different organizations, what are some of the pushback and objections you hear from them on adopting AI?
So on the larger organizations, and I've stayed away from the companies with 100 employees or more. And I mean, I've talked with several that have thousands of employees. And typically what their issue is, it's more of an organizational culture issue, where you have typically the InfoSec and the legal are going to push back. And it's a very uninformed pushback. And what I mean by that is it's more out of fear, like, oh no, our data is going to be compromised. Okay, there are ways to build models. So I totally understand the privacy and security of data. For about $100,000, it depends. There are companies out there that can do custom development. There are some out of the box tools where you can have your own generative AI or AI model that stays inside the company. You can use a model that's an open source model, like from Llama 3 from Meta, where you could train it on your data and you could get similar kinds of output without actually having to go and send any data to OpenAI or Anthropic, the company, or Google, whatever model you might use. So that's an example of there is a way to stay in compliance, privacy, and security. And it's painful. You're gonna have to change a lot of your processes, but if you don't do it, by 2027, there'll be three kinds of companies: AI emergent, AI native, or out of business.
You're right.
If you don't do this, you got 2 years, and it will take about 2 years to go from an AI beginner to an AI emergent. And emergent means you basically have AI policies. You've got it deployed not just in your product. Like a big mistake companies do is they'll say, "Oh, we added a API to ChatGPT for this really small part of our product. We got AI covered." Okay, it's kind of like saying, "Yeah, we got an internet connection. We're covered with the internet." Yeah, but you need email, social media, voice over IP. What what I'm saying? That's people don't look at this the right way. You need to have AI for every internal process, for your data analysis, for communication within the organization. You can use AI for all of this. That will make you far more efficient. So and I say, look, here's the deal. And I've had this before. Like I had a payroll company, 1,300 employees, talked to the CRO, 200 sales reps. I met with a sales rep. She explained to me exactly her process. Takes 3 hours. 3 hours to to do a research on an opportunity. A call is set. You got to go through it. What's the name of the company? What do they do? That's called the sales strategy doc. Then they have a call. Then she's got to put the meeting notes and summarize, and then she's got to go and do a plan, etc. And I showed her that in 15 minutes, I can do the same work that she does that takes her 3 hours. Okay, so if she has 2 opportunities a week that are new, okay, I could save her roughly 4 to 5 hours of work. Now, I said that to the CRO, and he was like, "That's great, but what would it cost for us to, get licenses? And what would it take?" I'm saying, "Yeah, you'd probably just the licenses if you use ChatGPT would be $60,000 a year for your company." But even that, I'm like, but what's the time worth? You're paying these people $100,000.
That's half a job.
That's half a job. And I'm showing you how your employees can be, but we don't have any budget. Okay, we didn't budget for it this year. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to wait a whole year before you put this in the budget, which is, and again, this is not the only one. I've had lots of companies have said that. Oh, and then the legal people are having a problem because they think that if we, because I totally understand that there are some areas where there should be legal concern. But this idea that somehow I'm going to write an email, and because my email sounds like somebody else's email, I'm going to get sued because of, or I put a blog out or a post, and I don't know, ABC's or some company's going to sue me because I'm stealing their IP or something. No, those aren't going to be the legal issues. Where I think this is important is you will need to disclose for certain industries, did you write this with AI? I think that's important, that some marketing agencies that use AI need to disclose that to their clients. we will be using AI in order, and that is processing some of their data. So these are the kinds of things that are important. The other is, when we're talking about security, is this idea that you are sending your data to some place, OpenAI or into Microsoft's cloud, or however you want to put this, Anthropic going into AWS. But technically, these companies have different protocols. So if you have the paid subscription of ChatGPT or Claude, they say they won't use it for training. It gives you a certain level of security where we won't train on the data that you send up to us. Okay, it's their promise, and not every time when the tech companies promise something, they deliver. There are enterprise versions of these large language models that also say they guarantee security. Again, when we're talking about this number one barrier, there's always a solution, but sometimes people's minds, the InfoSec and the legal minds, haven't grasped the gravity of the situation. And I have to work with the C-level to say, before I'm going to work with you, you have to work with the C-level, with these people, to get agreement. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere, because the first step is to create a company policy, is to get I would say is to get what we call an AI council. You don't want your CTO running the AI council. You want that, because the CTO and the tech team, they understand the data science behind AI. They don't understand what is search engine optimization or pay-per-click, or how a sales team needs to optimize their processes. So you're going to want to have the tech team involved in this council, but you're going to want to have all your business units there so that you agree upon a couple of things. This is our policy. Okay, if you don't have a policy, all your employees are basically using their personal ChatGPT accounts. They're copying confidential company data. They're sticking it in their ChatGPT accounts, and they're coming back. And there's more data leakage than that.